Yeah, hello. I hope this stream is working all right. I still don't have that huge experience there with YouTube. Only the second stream ever. And I hope it worked with the announcement of the stream and everything. I'm not sure it does. We'll see what happens. Okay. It says live stream is started. I hope it works. But I'm not quite sure. Yeah, okay, I see it started, but I wondered if this announcement, if this worked all right. I mean, I had scheduled this for 10 o'clock, and it should have popped up in everybody's subscription feed, but I don't see any spectators yet, so this is not pointing towards this thing working. Okay. Let's see if chat is working. Huh, that's weird. Yeah, she says I've got 2 spectators, but that's rather weird. And I had this announcement out. Okay, people can hear me fine. Okay, yeah, well, hello then. Yeah, hello to this broadcast. I think I'm trying to see that I get the chat, that I don't have to. I need to adjust this a little bit. Let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can. It's tough. It's tough to set this up in a way that I can actually see the chat fine without having to adjust stuff here all the time. That's no good. Okay, I'm sorry for the teething problems here. No, it's not ideal. I have to find some other setup in my window here so that it works better. So I basically have to tilt my head to the right side from my end all the time. No way to avoid it for the moment. Okay, let's get going with the actual content of all this. We're going to look at the penultimate round here of the Tata Steel tournament, and I encourage you all to ask questions about games, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability and to what is actually sensible in the context of such a show. I don't want to be online for 3 hours. For that, it still should be within 1 hour, or let's say 90 minutes or something like that. So I'm going to start with the first game, and it's on paper the most interesting game, but unfortunately this didn't really materialize. It's a game Wesley So with white against Magnus Carlsen. We have c4 by So, a move that he has played earlier in the event with some success. He beat Giri in the first round. And after that, he only played draws. It's quite funny, So's result. He's always solidly near the lead, but never winning a game after the first round. Okay, Carlsen is playing the symmetrical and goes for e6. This is usually an invitation to the so-called hedgehog setup. Here, white's most promising move is g3, and after b6, the hedgehog is just around the corner. The hedgehog arises after white's main move d4. Yeah, d4 takes, queen takes, d6. This is how black usually plays, like rook d1, a6, and so on. We have this typical formation on the 6th rank, which is the hedgehog. So is playing something different. He plays the move rook e1. Here black still can go for an hedgehog setup, but it's a bit different. He can go d6 here, for example, e4, a6, d4, takes, and queen to c7, something like that. The difference is that in this position, white has played rook e1 and e4, and he was able to take on d4 with the knight without allowing the bishop trades. After the queen, after d4, that's what I showed earlier, this, here the knight recapture is very lame, because black is happy to bring the queen around and trade pieces. And this is the idea of rook e1. White wants to play e4, d4 and avoid piece trades. Yes, a6 is mostly played to cover b5, that's true. Rook e1. Black often plays a6 or d6 now, but he can also play d5. Just play classically in the center, and this is what Carlsen does. C takes d5 now, and knight takes d5. Taking with the pawn is not a great idea, as after d4 we get a position that looks like some kind of Tarrasch defense, Queen's Gambit Tarrasch, where this is not very well placed and the pawns are mostly weak. So knight d5. That also keeps this diagonal open, makes some sense. Here So played the move e4. Of course, white can also play d4, but after a possible capture, black gains the additional possibility to put a bishop here. And this is often quite interesting. It's just a blocking piece so that white cannot get the full center. So what he did is he played e4 immediately. And now if black would take on c3, let's say black castles and d4, then white will have a very decent full center. This is a line and position type that, for example, Vladimir Kramnik has played very successfully in the past. However, it seems that the move knight b4, as played by Carlsen, is better. It seems to be just a better move, because now black intends to jump into d3, and that would obstruct white far too much. So d4 is the only move. Black takes, knight takes, and now he plays knight a to c6, challenging this knight on d4. And this is actually very okay for black. White now took on c6. Of course, there's also bishop e3, but this is also not worrying black so much, as with trades he can easily reduce the pressure, going for knight c6 next, and then the position looks very, it's not symmetrical, that's wrong, but the c and d file are open, and there is no special reason to believe white is better. That's a question. What about e5? In what particular position? Trying to answer the question. e5 when? Instead of taking here e5, black, I don't know, black can maybe take this. If we look at this kind of position, black's knights look very active. Let's say rook b8. And you actually get the fork in directly. The fork is impossible to prevent. On move 11. Nah, e5 is not possible here. I think I covered the line that you mentioned. I think white taking does make quite some sense here. And now black takes the queen and recaptures with the bishop. This is actually important. Taking with the knight looks more normal, but after knight to b5, this is actually quite annoying for black. there's this threat here, sometimes on d6, and black has a hard time to get rid of that knight. If he, for example, covers the b7 bishop, then white just develops, and it's not quite clear what black is supposed to do. So something like a6 check is just losing stuff. He has to take with the bishop, and now rook b1 was played by So. That's a rare move. They normally play bishop f4 here in this position, but it doesn't seem to lead to that much either. Black goes g5 here, attacking the bishop, and something like this can just be answered by taking and king to e7. That whole line looks, to be honest, entirely unpromising for white. It's very sound, hard to lose, but also hard to win. Yeah, rook b1 by Wesley is not a particularly threatening novelty, let's say. Carlsen traded the rook here. Well, it's not a novelty, it's just a rare move. a3, and black jumped into d3. Yeah, there is no big problem here. Black's king is okay on c7. He gets rook d8 in. And now after those trades, bishop c5, we see that this position is very, very equal. Yeah, that wasn't a very exciting game. And I say was because it ended after this pendulum, rook d3, rook d4. Yeah, Wesley So's opening repertoire is very, yeah, as someone described it, it's a bit like a rock in poker. Yeah, you only play like 2 aces in position. Yeah, everything else is kind of not too much risk. And this is often very difficult then to play for a win or win games. It's tough. Sounds solid, but not very threatening. Okay, the next game I briefly want to check is Karjakin with white against Giri. If you still got questions about games that I have finished, just give me, just post the question. Yeah, I'm just doing the Tata Steel games tonight. The thing is, with hindsight, I shouldn't even have scheduled this stream, as I have to play an important game tomorrow and still need to prepare something for that. So, yeah. Anyway, we're going for Karjakin Giri, and the biggest moment. I'm sorry, I need some water. The biggest moment of that game is actually happening on move 1, as Karjakin plays 1b3. Quite funny. 1b3 is of course not a bad move at all, but seen very rarely still. And I don't think I even have notes for the game, which says a lot about how much interest it had. Anyway, 1b3. Maybe Karjakin is also doing that because of the candidates tournament. Yeah, nobody wants to show all their stuff, all their good stuff. Okay, Giri is going for d5 and bishop to g4. This is a very decent line. When I was doing my little series on offbeat openings for white, I also covered the Larsen opening, of course, b3, and this was one of the setups that I felt covering, but ultimately I decided to go e5. This is the more classical way. This is not bad, however, of course. Yeah, Karjakin goes for g3. Yeah, double fianchetto, and this leads to some kind of Reti setup. Yeah, very okay for white, of course, but not very exciting. If white wants to be exciting against bishop g4, he can do something like this. f3 is interesting. Bishop h5, and now something like knight h3 is quite a creative approach to trying to get the bishop. Or you can play the very crazy move e4. Takes and queen e2. This is quite funny and good for wins in blitz chess, as this is the unexpected loss of a bishop. Really funny. Yeah, you can play this bishop g4 also against one b4. So no problem at all, can do that. Okay, but Karjakin wanted to play sound solid. He played g3, e6, bishop g2, knight f6, h3, and knight f3. Double fianchetto, or double fianchetto. This easily could have happened out of knight f3 on move 1 and then g3 and so on. Yeah, black is putting up this setup. Similar to a Tory opening. Yeah, developing the bishop outside of the chain and then plays that triangle. This setup is something that black can almost universally play against everything that white is playing, which is not e4, d4, c4. Yeah, you can against knight f3, g3, b3, all those stuff. You can always play d5, c6, put the bishop out, and so on. Yeah, this is a very simple setup, but also very okay. Yeah, Giri took about 2 minutes. Yeah, against the first move. So white now went c4, and this makes it a Reti opening. The classical way to reach that would be one knight f3, d5, c4, something like this. This is the way our position could have been reached from the classical Reti setup or move order. Yeah, okay, so we are back into this. Yeah, it's like a reverse London. a5, a3, and e5. Yeah, this is a way that black definitely can play. It takes the center. The same kind of strategy was played back in the very first games of the Reti systems by Emanuel Lasker against Reti himself in New York. I think it was 1924. Yeah, when the Reti opening was like, yeah, the latest fashion and yeah, the absolute newest that there was. Yeah, Karjakin now goes for the capture and plays g4 to get the bishop pair. This whole position is quite unique in that white has a space disadvantage. You don't see that so much in modern openings, but the idea is that white has good bishops and they attack black center, so it's truly some hyper-modern kind of opening. Rook e8, white took the bishop there and now played e3. This is to make sure that the black pawns don't advance in the center. Yeah, so quite logical. Giri is going knight c5 to attack those pawns. They got covered. And now d4. That looks like a sharp move, and it is sharp in some way. It introduces some conflict in the center. Yeah, Karjakin played b4 here, attacking the knight, trying to push it back. Quite a logical choice. Knight went back to e6, and now after the trade, he went with the knight to c4. It's very important that white absolutely does not want to take on d4. After black recaptures, he always has to worry about a knight jumping to f4. And this is uncomfortable. Really is. Yeah, you don't want to give black this opportunity. This is why he plays this and yeah, keeps his options open after d takes to capture with the f-pawn. That was taken and e5 also taken. So a trade there of b against e-pawn. Bishop c5 to keep the pawn on d4, and white went back. Yeah, the position already has simplified quite a bit, and we see that here black is preparing the move b5, and white does not really want to allow that the knight is pushed around. So queen b5 was played, and now black went g5. I think this position is really roughly equal. Yeah, it's not a very let's say symmetrical kind of position, but it's very difficult for both sides to do much. Black does not want to take and open white's rook here on the f-file. And white also does not want to move his pawn there, as it would give away the f4 square or the d4 square. Something like that, for example, is completely illogical. Yeah? Why activate black here? Yeah, white went bishop d2 here, keeping the tension, and black now took, yeah, for some concrete play. Recaptured, and rook d8. Yeah, and we see that this pawn is attacked, but black is also giving up on the b7 pawn. The problem is, if white plays d4 now, he has this sacrifice. And after pawn takes, knight takes, there are various issues. So what he did is, he decided to take on b7. That's a safe choice and probably the right choice. Takes, takes, and rook takes d3. Yeah, and here we have a position that is completely equal. Yeah, 3 against 3 pawns on one side of the board. White has the bishop pair, but the black knights have very good, safe outposts. And here already they agree to a draw. There is not much that both sides can do here. The bishop is attacked and will probably retreat. I mean, somewhere here, and now maybe bishop to b4. It's a very equal position. I mean, you can continue, of course, but it's very hard to imagine one side getting to something substantial. Yeah, they both spent time on this. It's not like it was a easy game, could be played very very quickly. But yeah, I think draw is a very fair result. Okay, let's look at the next game that I want to check out. This is Hu Yifan against Mickey Adams. And I'm just looking at the chat, but okay, no question at the moment. Yeah, Hu Yifan had a terrible loss against Carlsen the round before. This this game where she transposed into the king and pawn ending and then blundered it away in one move. And Adams' tournament also was tough. So we'll see what those two will play. We've got the Berlin, yeah, and Hu Yifan goes for the end game, which is actually showing some desire for a fight. If white just won the draw against the Berlin, you play rook d1, and basically on that level, yeah, black is just not going to win ever. So this is actually a fighting choice. Okay, we get the end game. Check. And I'm not an expert, and I probably won't ever get to that state. So I'm not really the person to tell you a big subtle points about this. I just know what looks kind of normal and what not. Yeah, Adams went for the king 8 and h5, which is probably the most popular line nowadays. Black is preventing the g4 move. Yeah, Gachinsko says Hu Yifan started well, but then the tournament went downhill. Yeah, that's true. I already talked about that in earlier videos. I think that maybe the constant playing against super strong opposition is just a little bit too much for her. I mean, she's not used to that opposition round after round after round, and it probably there's a point where you simply don't have enough stamina to do it. I mean, I just imagine what I would do. Yeah, if I'm in a tournament, she's playing against people that are on average like 100 points higher, and this would be like me playing against grandmasters. They are like 13 days consecutively. Be very, very tough. Okay, so bishop to e7 here by black. Knight e2. The knight is quite often regrouped here in this line, going to f4, looking at this pawn, things like that. Black now goes knight h4 for that trade. And now put the bishop back. Yeah, to be honest, and I have to say, really, I'm not an expert. To me, I think black already looks quite okay. I don't think that with black I would be I would be fearing this position too much, or be worried too much. Yeah, she went a4 here, and now Adams takes this opportunity to play g5, gaining space on the king side. How many points I would score in this field? You mean in the Masters tournament? Wow, I would be happy with 2 to 3 draws, I think. Something like that, a couple of draws. I don't see me win a game. I think I would be I would have a very hard time in the challenges. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the challenges tournament, there are people like Admiral, he's got 2,440, which is around my level, and he's got like no points. It's just tough. Yeah, I think they should invite Hu Yifan more to these events. I think she's doing a good job in general. I mean, it shows that she can play on that level. It's not like she's getting killed every game. It's really not the case. She could have easily been on a +2 or 3 score early on. She actually didn't take all of her chances. Okay, so g5 here by black, gaining space on the king side and making sure that with the space gain also that the bishop will get a decent outlook here, that bishop. Yeah, black went to play with c5 and bishop c6, and this looks really okay. The bishop gets to be on a good diagonal, and it doesn't look very threatening, the white pawns. Yeah, like this. They don't really feel very threatening. Yeah, she advanced those pawns, and black got the king up to e6. Yeah, around here I was thinking, isn't that actually equal for white? I'm not sure. Black has the 2 bishops. The bishop on c6 is strong. There are sometimes problems with the king invading. White has to be careful here. But she played a very good move, knight to b5, attacking that weakness there on c7. And here black more or less has to take this. And after this capture, I think white shouldn't be in any danger. Black played c4, however, and after this, I think the tables might turn even a little bit. Let's see what happens. King g2, a4, and here I think Hu Yifan had an opportunity to gain some advantage, but it was very difficult to see. And when I say I think, it means that I looked at this with the computer and I checked what the engine is saying. Yeah, it is very computer based, this kind of commentary that you get right after the rounds. The issue is she played this and it looks totally normal. However, after rook d8, you cannot play the move c3, which you would like to do, and we will see why this is not possible. I think c3 was better, preparing bishop d4, and then maybe king up and f5. This is what white would love to do. Black has some issues there. Yeah, for example, if he goes like the rook to a8 or move like that, then king f3 comes, and if you allow king e4, this will get critical. So something like f5 maybe, but after takes, black is losing material. Yeah, that line actually continues with this. Yeah, but white is better here. Yeah, white is definitely better. The thing is, she played bishop d4, now rook d8, and now c3 looks like it transposes to this kind of setup. However, this is not the case. She actually played this move now. If c3, black has an amazing sequence of moves. He can actually take on d4, takes, a3, takes, c3, and wow, this c-pawn is dangerous. If white now plays king f3, the c-pawn is promoting even. Yeah, like rook back, bishop takes, and c1 queen. That's just a loss. So what is white supposed to do? The only way is here to play f5.
Check.
Yeah, and this line is pretty crazy. King d5, f6. Yeah, trying to take yourself. So how is black handling this? Takes. Rook takes f7. c2. I have my notes here. Otherwise, I would completely struggle here. Rook d7 check. King e6. Rook c7. And white is just about stopping the c-pawn. Promotes this. And yeah, in this position, like king f3, king f5. And black maybe has some winning chances. But it's tough to say. Nothing that white is probably happy in trying to play. If anybody, black is winning. So this was the line c3. She went bishop c3, and after that I think any possible chances for white advantage are over. Bishop c5.
Check.
f5 check.
Check.
And this gets traded. Yeah, rook g7. White also could have taken here, but maybe she was a little bit worried that black's activity here is too dangerous. Oh, sorry, I'm blundering the bishop. This first.
Check.
I mean, it's a draw, but it's a draw in both cases. Rook c7 or rook g7. They played a couple of more moves, but here they agreed to a draw after all those checks. So a game that was probably a rather correct draw. There were ideas for both sides. I think that c3 move was interesting for Hu Yifan, but difficult to do with very little time on the clock. Those lines were not easy at all to play. The next game, or are there any particular questions about this game? I don't think it was super interesting, to be perfectly honest. Those Berlin games, they sometimes a little bit stale. Yeah, sorry for the drinking breaks, but I need some water here and there after talking so long. No, there are. I mean, okay, Judith Polgar played in super tournaments when she was active, but it doesn't make any sense to invite the women world number 2 or 3. They would just get completely wiped out in a super tournament. And I mean, okay, you could invite Maria Muzichuk. She's like 2.550 or so, and she wouldn't score in that event. It's just like that. It's just too big of a difference. Yeah, I mean, this is like Hu Yifan is very solid, 2.670, and 120 points is a huge difference. It really is. So I don't think that she would do great in this event. You can look at the B tournament, the Challengers tournament. There's Zhu Wenjun playing, the Chinese number 2, and she's struggling a lot in that event. Okay, Hu Yifan Adams was this game. What next? Let's go Vahim Mamedyarov. Okay, we have an opening that I actually know a little bit. Classical Spanish here, and the Breyer, yeah, the line that I want to learn and play occasionally in tournaments in Blitz chess. I don't know it well yet, to be honest, but I think I'm doing still reasonably okay in my games. Okay, this is the main continuation, and now Vailly plays a somewhat offbeat line, the move c4. It's not a new move. It has been even played by Fischer, yeah, back in the 1960s when the Breyer was just about getting popular. And to be honest, that move has never really caught on. They almost exclusively play knight bd2 nowadays. c4 is leading to completely unusual structures for the Ruy Lopez, as white plays the knight to c3 and pawn on c4. This looks exactly like an old Indian defense, by the way. Yeah, an old Indian against 1d4, where the bishop is just weird on b3. I think actually it's hard to imagine that black should have any problems here, as the bishop is really bad on b3. And the old Indian where black got in b5 is not such a terrible opening anyway. Of course, black has spent some time, knight to b8 and so on, but white also has moved his bishop quite a bit. Okay, black played b4, attacking that knight, and knight to e2 was played. This is, of course, involving a pawn sack. White can, of course, also play knight a4, but this looks like a somewhat offside knight. That was, for example, played in the game that I actually witnessed live when I was in Berlin last year in the World Rapid World Blitz, where Carlsen played c5 here against Vallejo Pons. And this knight is really misplaced. Yeah, white has to spend some time in getting it back into the game. And I really don't think that black should have any problems here. Yeah, knight e2, however, was played by Vailly, and now black can also ignore this thing that this e4 is hanging. But then white has gained something because he will get in knight g3 conveniently. So snatch the pawn. Yeah, what is white's idea? He goes queen to c2 and attacks this knight. And in case of black retreating the piece, he has some kind of compensation. Yeah, for example, let's say knight g5, white might take this. There are a couple of continuations, but taking. Ah, hi John. Got John Bartholomew in the chat. Yeah, I'm also glad that this is possible. Yeah, streaming via YouTube. It's just much easier. Yeah, bishop takes and rook d1. This is probably some compensation for the pawn. Yeah, knight g3, c5. Those moves open up the position, and black is not very well coordinated. So f5 was played. This is the much sharper move, but it turns out also very okay for black.
Check.
White gave the check, d5, and now bishop e3, just supporting the center. Black does not have anything great now. I first thought, what about f4? Yeah, and this is a move. It just leads to completely wacky complications. White, for example, can take this, but black plays king h8. Funny, yeah? And this hangs, and now the queen hangs. And something like bishop d5, pawn takes, queen takes here.
Check.
Yeah, it's just totally bonkers. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, it's completely crazy. The engine says 0, 0, 0. Yeah, very funny. Protecting the knight with d5 here. Yeah, white can take. This is the issue. Yeah, this is losing a full piece. f5 is okay. It's really okay what he did.
Check.
And here maybe f4 is a bit much, even though it's interesting. It's interesting. White can take this, for example, and black captures here. It's a whole mess. It's a complete mess. Yeah, but okay. King h8 was played. I think this is the more solid decision. Yeah, getting out of the diagonal and making sure that nothing bad happens there. Yeah, knight takes e5 now. White got the pawn back. Yeah, and this position is quite interesting. Yeah, black has this nice looking knight that, however, doesn't have that many squares. White has chances to go to d4. That can be interesting. And has this pawn on e5. It's a sharp, interesting position. However, the way it turned out after bishop h4, it was a little bit difficult for white to make any progress. He definitely wants to get rid of that knight, so he plays the rook to f1 to prepare f3. Yeah, a5, supporting this pawn. Maybe allow this on the right moment. Yeah, and now f3 was played. Yeah, black now basically has to play knight g3. Going back here is looking somewhat wrong. I mean, it seems playable, but it's yeah, white can maybe just take here, play f4, knight to d4. Felix says he likes my new haircut. It's the same that I have for 1.5 years now, so it's it's not so new. Just my picture on YouTube is old. Yeah, so takes on g3 and f4. Yeah, and this is a kind of position where it's rather difficult to make any headway. The reason is that if you only have bishops in such a rather close position, it is almost always a little bit static. Yeah, white basically has just one plan available. This is to push g4. And if black plays like this, bishop to e6, and maybe if necessary a queen to d7, it doesn't even do that, but if you imagine this, black is, wow, let's draw that again. Black is looking at this square so often that white will not get in to play g4. And if you cannot play g4, there is no way forward. You can try some a3 maybe, but you need you need the pieces on the queen side then, and not as they are positioned here with rook on f3 and f1. They continued for a bit, and white made this funny king walk, king over to c1. And now you were expecting that maybe white is trying to regroup and try to get in g4. But it never materialized. Yeah, it never materialized. Rook to g8, and here Vailly is playing h4, which is the same thing as a draw offer. And he offered a draw, as black can just play h5 and the game effectively ends here. Yeah, this is just not very ambitious. Yeah, I think white should maybe try to shoot for some g4, but it is difficult to do. It's really difficult to do. Yeah, you would have to get your rooks somewhere here. Yeah, g2h, g2 and g1, bishop maybe back here, and then g4. But I mean, I think that white should have tried that. There's a little risk, I think. Yeah, I saw that Anand lost in Gibraltar against 2500 GM. Yeah, I don't think that black c and d pawn can be attacked, as someone is suggesting here, Dan Nimoy in the chat. How would you do that? You have to attack the c pawn, but you can only attack it once. You can try for some a3, but it doesn't look like this is leading too much. Yeah, black will just cover that pawn. It seems like a rather equalish game all the way. Yeah, are there any questions on that game, which wasn't a real thriller, I have to say? But this is not one of the more exciting rounds anyway. Yeah, we have to be perfectly honest there. Yeah, rook d1, that's not threatening much. Queen to a6. Yeah, black has rook a8 or rook c8 to cover that. It's the only way forward here is to open up some kind of file. And you can try a3 with white at some point, but you also open up your king that way. And black is not forced to take. He can play like rook b8 and try to take on b4. Well, someone says they like how I play the modern Benoni with black in my blitz games. Oh, I don't do that often. And I usually don't feel I'm doing it well. Yeah, expectations for the last round. I think I'll talk about that I talk about that at the end of the video. Yeah, has Vahis rise stopped already? Well, he didn't have a good event in Qatar, but I think he's doing very well in this tournament. He's on 50%, which is a great result for him. So that's totally fine. Well, what do you expect? That he crushes all these guys? I mean, he still has huge problems in some strategic positions. And look at this match against Peter Swidler. Yeah, in the World Cup, Swidler was totally killing him. If he would have had better finishing qualities, that match would have been over very, very quickly, actually. Okay, so let's continue. What to do? We go for Nevara Tomaszewski. Yeah, there were some more exciting games, but I'll cover them after that. Yeah, we had a Queen's Indian in this game, and Nevara plays this line with Queen to A4. Yeah, this is a very safe line against the Queen's Indian. White has a couple of sharper options, but I think at this stage of the tournament, you have to see that it's a very long event. It's the 12th round. Some more conservative options are, I think, welcome often. Okay, bishop here and c5. White takes on c5 and black takes with the pawn. You can also take with the bishop in this position, but this is believed to be slightly better for white. Yeah, he goes with castles, knight c3, rook d1, and so on. Yeah, the Queen's Indian is a very solid opening. Someone asks about this. It's very much playable, rather flexible for black. Yeah, he took with the b pawn. This is the more respectable choice nowadays. Castles. 75. 75 is not seen in this position, but yeah, I think it's probably not that great because black can take and win this pawn. This is not such a big issue. Quite often you can sacrifice this pawn, but after knight c3 and black goes back, white has to go back to c2. And this is basically a position that white can reach with a tempo up, because there is this line. And here it's white's move. And in your suggestion here, it's black's move. The Queen's Indian is not drawish per se, as someone suggests. It's just sound and solid. It's based on solid values, and there are some lines that are drawish, but not more than Queen's Gambits or some other lines. It depends on the level on which you're playing. If you play on the super highest level, even the sharpest lines are considered drawish, because they know them so well, and quite often it's just reproducing some computer stuff. Yeah, I'm glad that someone says they enjoy the commentary. Thanks. I'm glad that you feel it is useful. Okay, we have those moves. They are looking, I think, quite normal. So here Tomaszewski goes for queen to b6, bishop f4 here, and d6. d6 seems to be somewhat out of fashion here. Rook d8 was the normal move for a long time, but d6 is also quite normal. This is again Nevara Tomaszewski. Rook to b1, knight bd7, and b4. So white is getting something going on the b file here. It looks somewhat dangerous, but with some precise moves, it seems there isn't happening that much. Rook fb8 here. If white takes, then queen takes is totally fine. The rook is now looking at a protected bishop. So white is keeping the tension, as is black. Yeah, slowish moves, yeah, waiting moves. It's not so easy to make some kind of progress here. I wonder where my notes are. I made some notes on this game. Here they are. Yeah, g4, gaining some space here by Navarra, and queen c7. And now we actually get to an interesting position. Here Navarra can play normalish moves, let's say. But queen a5, very interesting idea. Yeah, with queen a5, white is offering a queen trade and at the same time destroying his own structure. Tomaszewski accepted this invitation, and now we have a position where it looks like white is almost a pawn down in some way, because yeah, this is really useless, but he has this pressure here on d6. Yeah, Tomaszewski has to cover that, basically. And now knight e5, very funny tactical motif. Opening up the bishop here. Yeah, Tomaszewski took this. Alternatives? Well, you could have taken on g2, but this line is extremely computerish. Knight takes d7, takes, bishop takes. Yeah, the thing is, with f5, black is, with some miracle move, getting this back into the game. And the whole situation after rook b7 is totally unclear. Really tough to say what's going on. Yeah, we have material-wise, white is a pawn down, but he's quite active. A very strange position. Yeah, this is the more logical continuation, I guess. Tomaszewski, after bishop takes, gives up an exchange. Yeah, very interesting way of playing. Navarra had to take and now went into b7 with his rook. And we now have something very critical. Bishop d8, it was attacked, and now a5 is hanging. Knight e4 and bishop to c7. He covers that pawn. The next move here by Navarra is probably not that great. Plays rook c1, and after that he probably doesn't have anything. Yeah, after that there's nothing happening again anymore in terms of an advantage. He maybe could have played something like this, what the computer is suggesting, keeping the rook on d1 for a moment. The problem with his line is the following. After knight takes, you now cannot put the rook back. If you retreat and keep the exchange, then black has to move c4, and this is very much a problem. The knight is covering this, and black is now ready for d5. And if you look at something like this, let's say, maybe even here, something like this, here only black can be better. Yeah, it's a very murky position, but only black can be better. Those pawns are very strong and the knight is strong. So he felt he has to avoid that, and you can only do that by taking here. And here you get all your stuff back, and the result is, as it is so often, total equality and a draw. Yeah, so there were some interesting moments in this game, but ultimately a draw in 32 moves. There was a question about the current leader of the Challenges group, Adiban. Yeah, he's a very interesting player, playing very sharp stuff. Very optimistic, kind of aggressive player. Will be interesting to see. It's hard to say how those people fare in the top group. But I think the system is very nice, that they have this Challenges tournament where people can qualify for the top group. Even two places would be cool, not just one but two. Why not? No, that's a very interesting concept, and you get new players to play there then all of the time. But I think it's not decided yet. Yeah, even Dreyev can still win it, and even sounds wrong. Dreyev is a very strong player, but he's not. He's not playing. He has not played in such a super top level event for a long time. Okay, we only have 2 games left. I'm shooting for Ding versus Elyanov now, and here we got a Queen's Indian again. The Queen's Indian is played quite a bit now here in this round and in this tournament in general. Let's see what happens here.
Check.
G3, yeah. Elyanov is going for this line, the bishop b4 check line. Not very popular, but not a bad line. I've played this myself a little bit, long time ago, but I played it a bit. So bishop d2, bishop e7, knight c3, bishop b7, all looking quite normal. The move c6 is interesting. What black is doing is he prepares the move d5. He can play d5 immediately, but quite often players want to be ready after c takes to capture with the c pawn. So this is why he plays c6 first. Castles. Instead e4 was possible, of course, and then like d5, and yeah, and now a couple of things are possible. Takes, knight e5, for example. That has been played in the World Championship match between Anand and Carlsen. There's also this continuation. I think this, and this, and then knight e4. A couple of interesting continuations. Ding is going for castles. This is something that he had played before in a game against Lazaro Bruzon only last year. We'll see how this game went because we follow this game a bit. Yeah, white has centralized his rooks. In that mentioned game against Bruzon, he had played bishop g5, but now he goes for rook c1, rook c8, and now an interesting move by Ding. Very surprising move, I think. He played the move knight to e1. A decentralizing move. The knight goes back. I'm quite surprised, to be honest, because the knight does not look very dangerous there. Elyanov now decided to capture on c4, and I somehow don't like that move. I don't like it because after that the knight, I think, gains a little bit more sense, let's say, on e1. We'll see in the game how the knight makes sense. There also was the move c5, and this looked very logical to me because the knight has left his post from f3 and now black is attacking this pawn. The very logical continuation now is actually c takes d5, and black now takes on d4. That's interesting, right? The knight is attacked. Yeah, and now if white wants to do something, he has to play d6. I pause a moment because it really looks weird, but it does make perfect sense. If white takes here, for example, then knight c5 is good for black. That knight is hanging. Okay, d6. Black takes it, takes, and now knight c5. Very important move. Looking at bishop and queen. Queen goes up, knight takes, queen takes. And here I think after something like, let's say, I'm not sure that's the best move, let's say bishop e7. Here I don't think that black should have any problems. White is a little bit better centralized here with rooks on c1 and d1, but it does not look like a position where black should be in any danger. So c5 is a possible improvement. Elyanov took on c4 and played the move b5. And I have some conceptual problem with this, because I think that now the knight is actually well placed there on e1, because it can jump to d3. And on d3, the knight makes perfect sense, looking at all those vital squares where black might initiate a breakthrough. This happened, bishop g5, black played h6, takes, e3. And now we see the knight might come to d3 and eventually jump to c5. And everything makes perfect sense now. I really wonder if that was the right idea. Yeah, someone says b5 looks strange. Yeah, you know, if you take on c4, how do you free your position? If you give white enough time, he will play e4 here and gain a big center. You have to do something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this is so bad, but it demands very precise play. The defining setup between a hedgehog and a Queen's Indian. Yes, David Exotica is answering that actually in the chat. The hedgehog always has the trade of C and D pawn. Like in the Sicilian, you have C and D pawn traded. This is the same in the hedgehog. In the Queen's Indian, you have a more fluid, flexible pawn structure in the center. You don't have C and D file open all of the time. So we had this, and now c5. I think if black now plays the move bishop to a6, then he is still kind of okay. Yeah, I'm not in love with his position, but it is kind of okay. The idea is to push c5, you're covering b5, and yeah, white maybe goes here, bishop f1, so that after c5 you can actually take here. But black does not have to play c5. He can also go for knight to d7, preparing this, and maybe after a possible knight d3, then go for c5. Black still has chances to equalize this in if everything goes all right for him. Yeah, here for example, after takes, takes, a4, black has rook b8, and is still kind of okay here. Yeah, for example, after pawn takes, bishop takes, knight takes, you trade and go a6, and now you get, due to the pin, you get the knight back. Black, I think, was still not hopelessly bad here. It's just that he has to be very careful. If he plays some second-rate stuff, just a little bit second-rate, let's say like rook d8 or so, then after knight d3 you have huge problems. Look how well the knight is placed. It looks at this and especially at this. And if black is making any more moves like this, let's say there's knight e4, and now you get to c5. Something like that is the total nightmare, yeah, that black has to avoid. Yeah, like this, and the c-pawn is the worst ever. This is why I didn't like this kind of setup so much. Then all of a sudden the knight e1 move made perfect sense. What Elyanov is doing now, however, is a bit tough to understand. I mean, this is a very friendly way of putting it. I just don't get the move, to be honest. Played c5. I understand he was fed up with being passive, but this is a full pawn and you don't get any compensation. I mean, absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's just a full pawn, and on that level, no. Yeah, Ding converted this rather comfortably, just playing normal moves, centralizing and harmonizing the position. Knight a4 is better than taking. That's important. If you take, then I think black's defense is eased somewhat. Yeah, just keeping this on the board and then later go into c6 is probably easier. Yeah, maybe Elyanov just miscounted something with this c5, but it didn't look good. And here white, again, is just a pawn, and white has active pieces. So there is absolutely no compensation. Yeah, the knight is now entering. And here after knight d6 already, Elyanov resigned. He's faced with this threat and with knight e8 check. Yeah, I think he probably, as Johannes Willemer is suggesting, he didn't have an appealing alternative. That's possible. Maybe he just said, okay, my position sucks. What to do? Yeah. And so he decided to break out, even though it wasn't a sound decision. Yeah. Okay, so the final game to check is Caruana Van Vele. And this is the kind of game where you know beforehand that it will get interesting. I mean, you never can be completely sure, but the likelihood is quite high because Caruana is in most cases playing 1e4, and Van Vele is the kind of person who really sticks to his guns. And his guns there, this is a knight off. So I need my notes there badly. Yeah, here it is. Yep, so we got the knight off, and yeah, P. Rutkowski is giving some info on the opening, and I have to agree there. Yeah, we got the knight off. Caruana is going f3 here. I'm not quite sure. This move is not played that often. It's usually played if you want to go for the English attack with bishop e3, but if you want to avoid the knight g4 line, which Van Vele is not playing anyway, so quite surprising that Caruana went here. Ultimately, this doesn't matter because Van Vele is playing his e6 stuff anyway. Yeah, so he's playing a line against the English attack here that has been popular for a long time, and its heyday was in the early 2000s, like around 2000, 1999, and so on. There's some info in the chat. Yes, I think you're right. Van Vele had even played this against Kasparov back in the day. G4, H6, castles, bishop B7, H4, all looking rather normal, I'd say. B4, knight A4, queen A5, and B3. This has been seen a lot, really, over the years. And now we come to the first critical position. Van Vele here is playing or played the move bishop to e7, and this seems to be not that great. Yeah, as already said in the chat by Mr. Rutkowski. The more tested line is knight c5 in this position, which has been played in a number of top-level games. For example, I found a game between Nakamura and MVL from a couple of years ago. It normally continues with a3 here, a very sharp kind of position. For example, a3, knight takes here, queen c7, and white takes on a4. Very sharp stuff. Or alternatively, black can try after knight c5, a3. I think there's also sometimes a rook c8 move. What is given here? Rook c8. A takes,
check.
knight takes, queen takes. Yeah, this is also interesting. Yeah, it's also interesting for black. He played the move bishop e7, however, and this seems to be just an inferior version of those lines. Caruana went for rook h3 after long thought. He definitely had to remember what he looked at some time ago, or was working out things over the board. yes, you can also take queen takes before, yes. So what Marcus is saying there in the chat is a3, rook c8, queen takes. Yeah, sure, that looks possible. Takes, takes, knight takes, pawn takes, d5, something like that. Yeah, I'm not absolutely I cannot give out any. Yeah, it's a don't try this at home kind of line, and my advice is useless. I would lose here with both colors. Okay, let's have a look at the game a little bit. Knight c5, a3. This is very similar, yeah, but the tactics differ a little bit. Benvedi played rook c8, and a takes b now was played. Now, check. After knight takes, check, knight takes, queen takes, king b2, we reach a similar position to what we have seen earlier, but after d5, the move bishop c5 proved to be rather strong. If black instead plays something else, I looked at knight d7 here, for example, then rook a1, queen c6, bishop d4 is also good for white. Yeah, knight a5 is coming. Let's say e5, knight a5, queen c7, and bishop c3. Yeah, white seems to be better. It's still murky, but white should be better. Yeah, he tried this, logical, yeah, opening up the bishop and bishop c5. Yeah, you're right. But Piotr, I think Rutkowski is saying, you get a position and tempo down. This is essentially the case. Yeah, white now is in excellent shape. When Veli played queen to d7, if you take on e4, this is the alternative you can check. White will capture here and go knight c5. And this is very dangerous, obviously. Queen back and g5. One reason of that rook h3 move is that you can go g5 now easily. Yeah, after takes, this rook now is, that was wrong. This is protected here. So there's not a rook hanging on h1. That tempo for white is super useful. Yeah, here, for example, white is just winning. Yeah, you cannot move the knight. I mean, you can try. Yeah? Let's say you try. Takes, takes, and takes. And where are you going with this? If you go back here,
check.
This is winning the house. Black's position is really bad. Yeah, he tried to bring the queen back to d7, but now g5 happened, and white's attack is, yeah, white's attack is enormous. I didn't watch the official stream. No, I didn't watch it. I didn't have time. I was teaching the whole day. I didn't do much in terms of watching. Yeah, g5. Okay, and g5. White's attack is very strong. He's gotten in g5, and the big issue is also he doesn't have any direct counterplay. Van Vedi took, traded here, and now knight to h7. What else? Yeah, here the move g6 was already rather strong. That was a good alternative. The idea is after g6, if black takes, we can take on d5. Bishop has to take, and then the move c4 is rather strong. Bishop c6, queen e1, and here black can actually resign immediately as e6 is collapsing. That move was very strong alternative. g6. But f4, what Caruana played, is also making lots of sense, of course. We shouldn't forget that this is pretty rotten, yeah, the knight on h7, while all white's pieces are super active. Black played queen to c7, traded, and knight up to c5. Yeah. black is in really bad shape. He tried a5. This is I think relatively the best chance. Now the move bishop g2 was strong for Caruana. The idea is that after pawn takes, you take, and take here. Again, this is not playing. You threaten d6. But what he played was also not bad, g6. It's maybe objectively a little bit less precise, but white is still a lot better. The idea was to go for this. And this is threatening, threatening a lot. Yeah, especially f5 to f6 check. It's a big issue. Here, the best move for Van Velde was queen to c7. Even though it's very unlikely that this would have saved him. White still can play f6.
Check.
King back and some rook e1, for example. That doesn't look good. But it's tougher than the game. In the game, he played rook c4, and now f6 was even a bit stronger. As now, after king back, white can actually take and take. And now the position opens up decisively.
Check.
Black can do this, but it doesn't really help. Now we are threatening queen g5 here as white. And
check.
Something like this is winning the queen. Yeah.
Check.
This is basically now the end of the game. The king did walk up here.
Check.
And now the g-pawn is promoting. Queen back. Queen e5.
Check.
b5. Wow, that's a nightmare. I didn't even check the rest of this game, so okay, he actually gave white the opportunity to promote.
Check.
Yeah, he could have taken here, but after king c1, it's game over. You can,
check,
if you like, kamikaze
check.
One more, but white has just too much material. So that was a win for Caruana in this crucial game against Van Velde. What is the consequence for the tournament standing? Before the final round, Carlsen is leading the event with a very nice score of +5. It's won 5 games, lost no game at all. A half point behind that, we've got Caruana. So Caruana has chances to catch up to Carlsen or even overtake him in case of a Carlsen loss. Carlsen is playing Ding Liren, who's after the win today is on the 3rd place. He's 1 point behind Carlsen. So if Ding wins, he would equalize or would get to the same score as Carlsen is, and would tie with get a tie with Carlsen. So there are many different possibilities. I'm not quite sure, to be honest, about Caruana's pairing in the final round. Let me check quickly who is playing. I really like to know that. Caruana is playing black against Tomaszewski. That's difficult. Yeah, so my bet for the final standing of that tournament, I can give you a clear guess. I don't think they don't have tie breaks in terms of playoffs or anything like that, and I don't think we get one. My prediction is that both those crucial games will end in draws. Yeah, I don't think that Caruana can beat Tomaszewski with black. Would be very difficult to do that. Tomaszewski will be happy with the draw. Difficult. And I think Carlsen has got white against Ding, and if Carlsen does not want to lose with white, he won't. So my prediction is Carlsen, Ding, Liren draw, Tomaszewski, Caruana draw. So it will be an outright win for Carlsen, and I think a pretty deserved one, because if I'm not mistaken, Carlsen wasn't in trouble in any of the games, at least not something there was no terrible trouble, let's say. So I think this is what will most likely happen. If you watch the tournament, or if you tend to watch the tournament live tomorrow, take into account that they start earlier. Yeah, they start at noon Central European time. So if you want to watch, make sure to tune in at the right time. I cannot watch myself. I'm playing a game on my own. Tomorrow, playing in the second German league. I will face a good grandmaster. I don't know who I will face, but can be up to 2,600. So keep fingers crossed for that. I will be starting my prep in a couple of minutes. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to prepare anyway because I don't know who I'm exactly playing. It can be 2 or 3 different guys. Yeah, okay. I hope you enjoyed the coverage of this round 12. So I think I will probably cover round 13 the same as I did this. If you enjoyed it, I will definitely do that. But it's something that I have. This would be tomorrow evening, yeah, and I'm not sure that I can do that easily because I've played this tournament game tomorrow. So we will see how fit and my moods are. Let's say after that. Maybe we get a video on that league game. It depends on how it goes. I didn't have any league games recently that I felt were worth covering. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be off for tonight, and I think I'll probably be on tomorrow with either a live stream or a regular video. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.